Whew, that was fun. That was a fun night of sports. And I thought, worked out great in you don't have them at the same location, unlike the Final Four. One, you can't if you have grass surfaces because the field gets torn up. But two, you make more money, obviously, this way. And because the West Coast one ended earlier, but it was in overtime, there wasn't the long delay in between. You're like, man, I can't wait. That next game was up and going, and it came really down to the wire as well. It was an epic matchup of great uniforms in the Alabama-Michigan game. And I thought Texas showed a lot more fight. They could have laid down. I thought Washington kind of held on for dear life. I didn't love their clock management at the end of the game, even though I love Michael Penix Jr. and that coaching staff does an amazing job. And Dan and I were 1-1. I picked Michigan and Texas yesterday in the Dan Patrick Show. He picked Alabama and Washington yesterday. So we split yesterday. There's no blood at all. I think so many of these things are like comical to me. Comical. I'll give you one thing that's comical to me. Like, Nick Saban slayed by Jim Harbaugh. Like, look, I thought Michigan was the better team all along. They have the better quarterback in terms of throwing a football. But the game did go overtime, correct? So they played an entire game, and let's be honest, Michigan had to forge an incredible comeback just to tie the game. Now, can you say that Michigan played tight? Diamonds in the coal tight, like Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Is that too dated a reference? I said to somebody Ferris Bueller's Day Off yesterday, like, I've seen it once. Like, really? John Hughes movies should be must-watches. You need to watch all of them, from Beethoven to 16 Candles to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck, and, of course, Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Anyway, Weird Science as well, underrated. Point is this, Michigan was tight. It's the only explanation for how could you possibly be that bad on special teams play when their special teams have been good all year. And as much as Alabama had limitations throwing a football, and Bill O'Brien seemed like he's right, this whole they were way better, I don't know. They played an entire game, and the score at the end of that entire game was 20-20. And then they had to play overtime. And it allows me to go into this rant, which I have in my back pocket. I think I'll pull out. College overtime sucks. I'm not saying it's not exciting. Totally exciting. But, and in some ways equitable because both teams get the ball from the 25-yard line. But it's a 100-yard field, right? It's 120 by 50? That's the official length of it, 120 by 50. And yet, for overtime, 75 yards don't matter. Don't matter. Kick returns, punt returns, which were a disaster for Michigan yesterday, don't matter. And my point is not that it's not fun and exciting. It is. But it's not necessarily an indicator. And when you want to decide a champion, shouldn't both teams get the football with a chance to go length of the field or just play another quarter of football? Right? And then you have to go for two. So that's like, hey, once you go to overtime, guys, you have to take 3-point shots and only 3-point shots. That makes sense to me. Regardless of which, two really close football games. And what we thought was true becomes true. It doesn't matter if it's more perception than reality, but we thought the SEC is a little down this year. And why is it a little down? I don't think it's overall talent. I think it's down for the same reason that Alabama didn't win that game. Because of the quarterback. The evening of the playing field in college football, which it won't really be even, but the reason that Oregon State suddenly was able to compete in the Pac-12. Now, I thought Oregon State's offensive line was good. I thought Jonathan Smith, who's now since left and gone to Michigan State, I think he's a good coach. But let's be honest, they had DJ Ungalele, who transferred in from Clemson. Why was Oregon so good? Like, Oregon's been good for a while, but you put is he 5th or 6th year senior who started as a freshman at Auburn at quarterback, and look at Washington. Caleb DeBoer is good, very good coach. They have excellent wide receivers. They have a good defense, they have good offensive line, but they also have a 24-year-old star as a quarterback. Whereas the SEC, you're replacing a 25-year-old in Stetson Bennett at Georgia with a guy who's not bad. And they got beat. Alabama, Jalen Milroe, he's just a guy. Good athlete, good human, solid, a very, very, very good competitor, below average thrower. Right? Who was better at the quarterback position? J.J. McCarthy's a better quarterback. Alabama's a little bit down. So what do we have here in terms of the competitive balance of college football? There are going to be fewer teams that can truly compete. There have always been few teams, but at the top, I think that is actually a deeper pool. I actually think I was always an 18 playoff guy, because back when you had 5 leagues, you take the 5 conference champions, you take the 3 best other teams, and you play them together, and you play 8 teams. It's not that hard. But I don't mind the 12. It's fine because the top seeds get a bye. It's whatever. But it really plays well into this era in college football, where there's an overall dominance in the top. The top is way better than the middle. Way better than the middle. But there's more teams at the top than there have been, because if you want to spend the money, you can go buy an experienced veteran quarterback who elevates your team above their normal level. And you're like, that's not true. Feel free. Go ahead. Pick it apart. That's the difference. That's the difference between Oregon now and Oregon in previous years. The Lions been good. They went and they got a guy who's a tremendous quarterback, and he stayed there. But I enjoyed last night thoroughly. There's new calls now to have the Rose Bowl be the site of all the national championship games. That's one of those great emotional pitches that is probably right in theory. In practice, it will never happen. Because you know where they're going to have it, right? They're going to have it Vegas. Once they have it in Vegas, be like, why are we so in love with the sunset on the San Gabriel Mountains? And then, you got to throw a bone to New Orleans because that place is cool. Atlanta because they love football and it's a cool stadium, I guess. I could do without Atlanta. It's not that I don't like Atlanta, but I don't understand the infatuation with big events in Atlanta. That one doesn't, other than they really do care there. And it's a great stadium, great football, but who cares? We're having the national championship game in Houston. Why? Because Texas is big in football? Like, Again, in theory, great. In practice, no chance. Yes, Dan Byer.
It's going to be interesting with the 12-team playoff, and we kind of had this in seeing in some of the conference championship games, but not all, is the amount of travel it's going to take for fans.
Impossible.
Yes.
Think about it. Okay, I'll tell you what will be hurt the most. Conference championship games, why would you go?
Yep.
Unless you can drive.
Agreed.
Okay? And then the teams that play in the first round, like, you got to balance out. This is like the NCAA tournament. And the other thing that's hurt, I agree, because remember, their teams are going to have to play 3 rounds. And like, okay, well, I'm not made of money. I want to go to the first game, but what if my team wins the next game, then I can't go?
I thought the same thing just of last night, because it was different with Texas, but Washington fans. Think of how much New Year's in New Orleans probably costs.
I have great friends, the Nutters, who live in Florida. And Angie Nutter is a UW alum, and she had a great time. And I was like, you go to the championship game? She's like, I am not made of money.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Like, we had great New Orleans. We won. Awesome. I'll watch the championship game on TV. And she'd love to go. Now, you could technically drive from New Orleans to Houston, but yeah, people have jobs.
Yeah.
Although this is a week in which a lot of people aren't working, maybe. But you have jobs and you have lives, and it's expensive. Like, am I going to stay in a hotel for a week?
And truly, it's just 1 week. And then you just had a vacation, so yeah, you're going to just be there for a Monday night game and fly out? Is that? Yeah, it just isn't. It's not a great situation for fans to try to figure out where to go and what to do.
I do wish it was at the Rose Bowl every year. I think the Rose Bowl is iconic. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's over 100 years old. And what we've done with the conference realignment is essentially render the Rose Bowl just like any other football stadium, which sucks. Again, we all know how this works. It can't generate the revenue that they want, and this thing is just about money. And if we can make it look like we care about the sport, cool. It's just about money. And the Vegas thing, I mean, like, let's also be honest, like, SoFi is amazing. It's, 30 minutes from the Rose Bowl, it's amazing. And if you sit there and go like, hey, we go to the Rose Bowl and it looks really, really cool. It smells, it tastes, it feels like a college football championship. Or we can make twice the money and do it at SoFi down the street, where it's an amazing stadium. It's artificial turf. It's a little bit sterile, but it's, wait, we can make twice the money? What do we think?
Yeah. Well, when they headed to the Bay Area, when Clemson beat Alabama, it was a complete failure.
Oh, you can't do Bay Area.
No, you can't.
L.A. is the only place you can do. L.A. and Vegas are the only. I don't even like Phoenix for it.
I even thought last year, I went to the game did not help things. When it's 65-7, it does not help things.
So
it rained out. Yeah, it rained here. It was weird. But you just think of like the ticket prices that I've seen. If Alabama and Texas would have played, it was the hottest ticket in Houston. Like, that's the perfect spot maybe to have that game, because you do kind of have a home field advantage. Then you have another fan base that's ready to carry it. But now I've seen ticket prices dropping significantly because of these two fan bases. To have it in the one spot, I think, would alleviate that. Sure, in some places you get a dream matchup, but in other spots you get clunkers. If you did have it at the Rose Bowl, At least it would always be the destination.
I agree.
Or Las Vegas.
I agree, and it's also why it's okay. So the upside to the doing it two different sites is that, and you just can't do it as quickly together as college basketball does, but the one site allows you to stay there, right? And you have all four fan bases. But there's, the money that they're making is so obscene. So obscene. Now, LA is the one place that you could do one site, do one at the Rose Bowl and one at SoFi, and then the championship, I guess, at the Rose Bowl again. Or you could do Vegas. They just won't do that. They're going to move it around the country. And I'm sure at some point they'll play one in Detroit just because we just do that. Let's give it to Detroit. Why? Like, I don't know. We feel bad because it used to be a cool city.
I know that's a joke. However, because of the cold weather situations, that's part of the scenarios for, say, a Michigan or an Ohio State, where they would get to play a quarterfinal game either at Ford Field, at Lucas Oil, because they wouldn't have them at the Big House or have them at the Horseshoe. You may put them in one of those facilities.
They wouldn't have them in cold weather?
No, they've talked about possibly.
Why? That's football.
I know. I get it. I understand it.
Like, I'm doing a game Saturday, Ohio State versus Indiana. And I'm like, I'm supposed to travel back Sunday, but like, what if I went to Green Bay? I've never been to a football game. They played the Bears, last game of the year, going to be freezing cold, right? Like, that's a football game. Mm-hmm. And I've been to lots of sporting events, lots of them, Super Bowls, World Series, All-Star games, baseball, basketball, football. And if you listen to the show, like, we actually go to the games. Some shows, they just watch things on TV. We go to the games. I haven't done that. And my point is, like, that's just a completely different feel. Completely different.
Yeah, I think they want it. That has been talked about. I don't know if you can. I know that has been the case. That they have looked at, and it's just for those spots in the Midwest where weather could be. But Detroit, even U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota could have been an option.
Well, the problem with that
for
is
an
though,
Iowa
if
top
you do
8 team,
like Texas, Austin's probably far enough south.
Yeah.
But other schools in the South, you can get ice this time of year.
Sure.
And it's nasty. As we remember from the Super Bowl, right, when it was in Dallas.
Yeah.
You get ice. Ice is way worse than any snow ever. Ever. But I did enjoy last night. Couple things. And this is a big thing. Please stop with the, you mean the Florida State couldn't have done that with their quarterback? No. They couldn't. Milroe is not a good thrower. Okay? Throws a nice deep ball. He obviously 4th and 31 against Auburn, but he's not. Part of it is he's playing against an elite defense. And I'm not using the bowl game. I understand that nobody played in the bowl game. But Florida State, your quarterback sucked. Okay? Sorry, you lost your star. Your backups weren't good enough. That's why they're leaving, because everybody knows they're never going to play there. They're just not good enough. That's the reality. So we're like, oh, Alabama lost. The committee got it wrong. Like, it went to overtime. Texas lost to Oklahoma. They shouldn't have been in. Florida State should have been in, or Georgia or Oregon. Like, they had the ball with a chance to win the game. The ball was in the air. Guy was kind of open in the end zone, and he couldn't elevate. The defensive back who kind of used him as a ladder did elevate. It's like, one, you can't really use results to make your determination. But two, if you're going to use results or gameplay, Alabama went to overtime. You can't get any closer than overtime. I guess double or triple overtime is the only closer you think you can get. They got stopped at the 3-yard line. 3-yard line. So let's stop with that. I'm doing my victory lap over Jim Harbaugh, because back when it was bad and Clay Travis and so many other people were like, get rid of Jim Harbaugh. He's like, okay, now what? And Bill O'Brien was right about Milroe. Can't throw. Not really a quarterback, especially long-term. NFL future, probably. Quarterback, not really. And congrats to the Pac-12. The very last year of the Pac-12, they finally break through. Right? And as a Big 12 guy, still fun to watch Texas lose. I like that Texas team. Still fun to watch them lose.